Hi, everybody. My name is David Gurk, and I'm from the Ann Arbor chapter of Citizens Climate Lobby, and I'm here today to talk about contacting your member of Congress about climate. First, let me go into Citizens Climate Lobby a little bit. We call it CCL for short. It's an international organization, and we're dedicated towards working for legislation that puts a price on carbon-based energy. And this price would start at a low level and increase over time. And in doing so, it would put a very strong incentive to move away from fossil fuel based energy and towards carbon free alternatives. Anyway, if you take a look at the title of our group, everything you need to know is right there. We're citizens who lobby for climate. And the lobbying aspect of it comes into play when we let our elected officials know how we feel about climate. Specifically, that climate change is real, that climate change is here, and that climate change is dangerous, number one. Number two, that we, as their constituents, want real, serious, substantive action, legislation to be taken on climate change. And number three, that we would like the members of Congress to consider our plan, our proposal, very seriously, and ideally to co-sponsor the proposal. The proposal is called the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividends Act. And the shorthand is HR 763, and it's a bill that's on the floor of the House of Representatives right now. Now, one of the most effective ways of contacting your member of Congress and letting them know how you feel about an issue is to call them directly at their office. If you do it on your own, that's great. If you do it as part of an organized calling campaign, that's even better because the cumulative voices on a particular topic have a much stronger impact on a representative than just a single call would. Now, the reason for this is that representatives really want to be seen as being on the side of their constituents and responsive to their concerns. Now, when it comes to climate action, representatives have a tendency to think that there aren't too many of their constituents who care about it or who are really interested in action on it because they think it might be too esoteric or too abstract of an issue for people to care about that much. So that's why it's up to us, climate activists and people who care about the issue, who understand it and who understand that we really need strong action to be taken, to contact our representatives and let them know that they have a lot of constituents out here who really, really care about it and want action to be taken. Now, of course, when you call the office of your member of Congress, you're not going to be talking to the representative directly. You will be talking to a staffer. That can be pretty interesting because they are paid and they are hired for the purpose of being friendly to the constituents and the callers. And it's often a very enjoyable conversation to have with the staffer. And when they get the calls, if they get enough calls on an issue, they tally these calls and they transfer, they let the representative know how the people feel about it, what the public opinion is on a particular issue, and that can have a real strong impression on the member of Congress. So how do you get started? First, you put together a little script. You start out by introducing yourself, you give your name, you give your location, and you emphasize that you are a constituent of the member of Congress. I always like to use the word constituent as frequently as possible. Say that you're calling about climate and tell them why you're concerned about it. You can start with a very general concern, for example, that the concentration level of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere has risen 45% since pre-industrial times. And you can say that as a result of that, global temperatures have already risen 1.1 degrees Celsius or almost 2 degrees Fahrenheit. You can get more specific than that. You can cite specific examples of the effects of climate change. We all know about the horrible wildfires that are going on in California right now, and there are really bad wildfires in California for the past several years. They seem to be getting worse and worse, starting earlier and going on later in the season each year. You can refer to the double whammy of the two hurricanes in the Gulf Coast just last week, Marco and Laura, and the fact that the weather patterns tend to get stuck over a certain area with climate change, and the rainfall damage is much worse when the weather patterns are stuck in place. You can talk about the horrible wildfires in Australia, devastating wildfires in Australia just last year. And just the other day, just yesterday, news came out that 28 trillion tons of ice have disappeared from the surface of the Earth since 1994. That's just an unbelievable amount of ice that's disappeared. And of course, we're just at the beginning of that process right now. So if we don't get a hold of this problem very, very soon, that's going to get much, much worse, and sea level rise will be catastrophic. If you'd like, you can make it personal. If you're young, you can talk about how you are young and you've got your whole life ahead of you, and that you'd like to be able to live your life on a sustainable planet. If you're a little bit older, you can make the same argument or the same case for your children or for your grandchildren. Fifth, you can make an ask or a request. Again, this can be very general or very specific, whichever you prefer. You can say that you would like them to place a high priority on climate action and be an outspoken advocate for climate action. That would be an example of a very general ask. Or you can get more specific. You can ask them to support or co-sponsor a very specific bill, like the H.R. 763 bill that I mentioned earlier. A lot of you have heard about the Green New Deal. If that's more to your liking, you can say that you would like them to support the Green New Deal, if you prefer that approach. Sixth, it's always a good idea to praise or to compliment your member of Congress on an action that they've taken, and then ask them to start at that point and go further. Use that as a springboard. For example, our members of Congress, Representative Debbie Dingell here in the 12th District, and Senators Stabenow and Peters, they've all sponsored meaningful legislation. Representative Dingell is a co-sponsor of the 100% Clean Economy Act that basically sets standards to be reached by 2050. It doesn't go into a whole lot of detail about what the mechanisms are to reach those standards. Senator Debbie Stabenow is a co-sponsor of the Growing Climate Solutions Act, which has to do with agricultural practices. And Senator Gary Peters is a co-sponsor of the Vehicle Innovation Act, which lays forward a path for us to make the transition from internal combustion engine cars to electric cars. And these are all excellent pieces of legislation, but none of them is a comprehensive solution to the climate crisis, and we really do need a comprehensive solution. So you can thank them for their work, and then you can emphasize that this is a good place to start and a good springboard to work more and to reach more ambitious and more comprehensive climate action. Okay, so how do you make the call? It's actually quite easy. If you don't know who your representative is, if you're in the 12th District, it will be Debbie Dingell. If you're not in the 12th District and you don't know who your representative is, you just Google your location and ask for your member of Congress. You can find it very easily. Of course, for those of you who are in Michigan, which I assume is most of you, your senators will be Gary Peters and Debbie Stabenow. And then you just Google their names and their offices to get their phone number. And then you make your call. And you will be given 3 options when you make that call. Press 1, leave a message. Press 2 to get general information. And press 3 to speak directly to a staffer. Now, if you're a little bit shy, a little bit nervous about talking to a staffer, you can press 1 and just leave a voicemail. And that's fine. If you prefer to speak to a staffer, then press 3. Now, from my perspective, it's always much more fun to speak to a staffer. You can have a nice, interesting conversation, and you can get a real feel for where the member of Congress stands on the issue. And I encourage you to do that. If you're a little bit shy, you can leave a message, but you can challenge yourself at a certain point and speak to a staffer and see how that goes. Unfortunately, right now, under the current circumstances with the coronavirus pandemic, they don't have their staffers in the offices. So you cannot speak directly to a staffer, just leave a voicemail. Hopefully that won't be the case too much longer. Okay, let's do a sample of a call. And I'll be calling the office of Congresswoman Debbie Dingell. Hi, is this the office of Debbie Dingell? Yes, hi, my name is David Gurk. I'm calling from Ann Arbor, and I'm a longtime constituent of the Congresswoman. And first of all, I'd like to thank her for being a co-sponsor of the 100% Clean Economy Act, and that's a really good start in fighting climate change, and we'd really like her to start from that point and move further. I'm sure she's familiar with the fact that greenhouse gas concentration levels are up 45% from pre-industrial levels, and that as a result, we've already risen 1.1 degrees Celsius or 2 degrees Fahrenheit from pre-industrial levels. And as a result, we're having all sorts of consequences. Right now, we all know about the wildfires in California. They seem to get worse more each year. We just had the double hurricanes in the Gulf Coast just last week. There was news that just came out the other day about 28 trillion tons of ice melting from the surface of the Earth over the past 26 years. That's something that's really just in the early stages, and that'll get much worse as time goes on if we don't address this situation. And we're already having daytime nuisance flooding in coastal areas, even without any rain, just as a result of the combination of climate change and high tides. So we really would like the Congresswoman to be a co-sponsor of HR 763, the Energy Independence and Carbon Dividends Act. We think it's a great plan. It should absolutely be effective in reducing our dependence on fossil fuels and move us to a clean, green economy. And we think that would be great if she would be a sponsor for it. So anyway, that's my call for today, and I'll be calling back in the future, and we will see how she's moving on these issues. So thanks very much. Bye now. So there you go. That's a sample of a call. And of course, you can use that as a template, or you can come up with your own way of doing it. You can personalize it or customize it as much as you'd like. Now we've got another tool which is very, very useful. We call it the Citizens Climate Lobby Monthly Calling Campaign. And what that does is it reminds you each month, every month, to call your members of Congress. And it makes it very easy for you to do so. All you have to do is sign up for it, and you'll be reminded to call your members of Congress each month. You just type in cclcalls.org. That's cclcalls, that's C-A-L-L-S, cclcalls.org. Enter your information, and it'll help you find your congressperson if you don't already know. You'll get an email each month, every month, and it'll remind you to make your calls. It's all set up for you to do so. When you make your call to your congressperson, then you log that call. It'll immediately give you the information for the senator, for your first senator, and then you make that call, you log that, and then it'll give you the next page for your other senator. It has everything there. It's got the phone numbers and everything, so it's very easy and very simple. And I really recommend that you try it. It really is effective, and it makes everything very, very easy. So anyway, thanks everyone for listening, and I hope you're ready to make some calls now, and I hope you do so. Thanks again. Bye now.